Live from Stockholm, Sweden, we're bringing you an interview with one of the world-renowned scientists, in this case of both chemistry and physics. And we'll have the pleasure of interviewing Miss Sara Maria Teresa de la Selva from Mexico.
This year she's nominated for a Nobel Prize in Physics.
And may I say, we are still debating. She is in the run for both physics and chemistry. So we'll...
Not just one award, but two.
Yeah, this is very few
Truly
times
remarkable.
this happens. It's amazing and true pleasure to be here with you. Just a little bit of context. We're in 2018. We're celebrating 117 years since the Nobel Prizes have been awarded. We have to thank Mr. Alfred Nobel for his contribution to science, technology, and field of economics, as well as world peace. We are truly humbled by all the achievements of Mr. Alfred Nobel, and it's a pleasure to be here. I, of course, represent. I've been working for 25 years at CNN. Where you can really find truth in the news, and we have...
And I'm from the New York Times. I've been with them for 5 years.
Yeah, by the way, if you guys haven't seen CNN for the last 20 years, my name is Andy Locke.
And I'm Sue Fields.
Thank you guys for watching. We'll be right back after these commercial breaks. Welcome back, audience, and we're going to begin our interview with Miss Sara Maria Teresa de la Selva. From now on, we're just going to call her
Tere.
Tere for short.
For sure.
By the way, we really appreciate your outfit today.
Tell us a little bit about it. Are the goggles a special motif of yours?
Yes, because we were trying to look through the electronic microscope reactions with nanoparticles and things of the sort. This is why I am carrying this thing.
Very interesting, indeed. Let me open this brief interview by just restating the reasons why you have been nominated to win the 2018 Nobel Prize of maybe chemistry or physics, or maybe both. In this case, Tere's research involves non-linear mathematical models of chemical reactions. And as you guys know, this has been a particularly troublesome field in science where nobody has come up with the right answers. So let's begin with the first question from Sue.
Yeah, so we really want to know what got you started in your field.
I started just because I admire very much my great teacher, Leopoldo Garcia Colin. And then when I saw him give a conference, I was so impressed that I decided to follow on this mixed field between physics and chemistry.
That's wonderful, wonderful. And when we asked, what academic institution was that?
It was at the National University of Mexico, the UNAM.
UNAM?
UNAM, yes. That was before the university I am working at now was founded.
Very interesting. Please proceed, Sue.
So, chemistry and physics, why do you think those two go so well together?
Oh, because
why did you decide to study both and not just one?
No, because there is a region, an intermingle at the field that is not very much attractive to physics, and it is not very much attractive to chemists, excuse me, but it is something that concerns all around and inside our bodies and our brains and everywhere.
Very interesting. It's indeed fascinating.
Chemical reactions.
Fascinating stuff.
The intersection between chemistry and physics on these non-linear mathematical equations might solve.
Yes, that is the problem.
What will be the key aspect of your discovery?
It is not exactly my discovery. It is that I applied theories by Nico van Kampen, that was a great statistical physicist that use the idea that there are slower variables and fast variables with respect, slow and fast with respect to the ability of the observer. So there were many chemical reactions that didn't obey Coulter and Bagge theory. I mean, if you have many collisions, the faster the speed. But there are reactions whose speed depends on the concentration on the denominator. And that's against all the rationale of collisions theory. So people started developing successive steps that constitute a mechanism proposed in order to recover from them the rate law, the mysterious rate law you find in the experiment.
This is fascinating, Tere. Fascinating. Can you give us, I'm sorry, Sue, it might be your turn to ask a question.
So when did you start working on these nonlinear equations? Is this a recent discovery of yours, or has this been a long running?
No, it has been a long time. It's going to be, let's say, 20 years ago.
20 years?
Yeah.
And where were you 20 years ago? When it all started?
At the new university.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we ask, as this field evolves, what would you think are the practical applications that we might see maybe in industry in 5, 10, 15 years?
Scientifically, it is more important to clarify the mechanism and to be sure the limits of validity of the proposed mechanism be in enzymes. You see, that applies to biochemistry, to what happens in your body, not directly towards industry, but towards understanding the chemical reactions inside your body that depends on enzymes, that are reactions catalyzed by enzymes.
Aren't you studying some kind of practical applications of nonlinear equations into the field of genetics or immunotherapy? Wasn't that part of your earlier studies? May I add, Sue has been following Tere's career for about 15 years, and she has a number of articles in the field of...
Very, very true. Tere has been an inspiration of mine for years. I've read many of her books,
Yes.
which are groundbreaking in her field. If you want to touch a little bit about some of those publications.
Yeah, do
For
you remember the
example,
latest one that she's just written? With Professor...
A bestseller.
Professor Pina.
Professor Pina was my professor. He was a contemporary of Garcia Colin, and one of the things that made us very proud was that the mathematical study for the Michaelis-Menten catalytic reaction. It was essential for chemists in applications to know which was the parameter that justified the mechanism to explain the rate law. So first, in a very primitive fashion, they used what they called stationary state hypothesis, but that doesn't give you a criterion to evaluate if the mechanism is consistent with the result of the experiment. Later on, essentially Rutherford Aris came in, and he, applying the separation of fast and slow variables by Nico van Kampen, he proposes that the mechanism was consistent with the experimental rate law you observed if the quotient between concentration of an enzyme to concentration of substrate was very small. Well,
that's what we as scientists told us, that exactly what you said, the concentration is the key.
Okay. And then afterwards, we decided to really take seriously the mathematics implied by the succession of steps called mechanism, and then by studying its properties and applying Nico van Kampen theory to chemical reactions, we discovered that everybody else was wrong. That the real parameter that makes compatible the mechanism to the rate law is the quotient of the concentration of enzyme to a combination, a numerical combination of the Arrhenius constants of the elementary reactions involved in the mechanism.
This is wonderful. I think I'm clearly one of the top contenders to win this Nobel Prize.
Speaking of contenders,
I
should we touch a little, what do you think of the other scientists up for nomination?
Please, Tere, we will get right back to you guys after this brief commercials. I'm sorry, it was just a word from our sponsors. We'll be right back.
And we're
back
yeah.
from.
Welcome back.
Yeah, thanks from the sponsors.
Yeah.
Back in Stockholm.
Live.
By the way, we just got some questions from our audience.
Yes.
You know, have you noticed there's some big celebrities on the audience here in Stockholm, and we have some questions, and you might want to start asking audience questions.
So yeah, one of the frequently asked questions from the audience is, what lengths are you going to go to win this Nobel Prize? Because obviously you're up against quite a few.
You know, several.
So tell us a little bit.
World-renowned scientists.
What lengths will you go to
Are you willing
get
to?
this prize in
just,
your hands?
What leads really people devoted to science is the curiosity to find the result, to solve the problem. We are far away of getting any prize, and least of all the Nobel Prize. To me, it was an amazing surprise that I still cannot understand.
Wonderful answer. It says, Ms. Tere, do you believe that the recent discoveries in gravitational rays and antimatter particles has a direct implication in your theory?
No, they don't have it. They don't have it, but they are most interesting questions, those ones, because they are related with the whole structure of the universe. But they are not really interfering. They belong to different orders of magnitude of particles.
Excellent answer. Excellent answer. We have a question from Russia, direct from the Kremlin.
Oh my.
This is a question, I'm going to read it literally. Are you willing to sell your discovery to the I've been asked, yeah, cut. That's not a loud question, I'm sorry, please go ahead.
Okay, as we were saying, what do you think's on the horizon in this field of chemistry? What is left to discover? What do you foresee?
There are many more complicated reactions than the one I mentioned. So, and not only that in chemistry, in general, in the description, there are 3 levels of description of the world around us. The atomic description, molecular description, and then mesoscopic description, and then macroscopic description. And in the middle field, there are a lot of systems that need to solve nonlinear mathematical equations. Fortunately, in chemistry, we were able to make use of the idea of Nico van Kampen of the separation between slow and fast variables. Which are the slow ones? The ones that you can observe. Which are the fast ones? The ones that you cannot observe. Participate, and then you end up with a surprising experimental result. So there is a general problem in the description of the nature around us, because what is very difficult to solve are the nonlinear problems.
Interesting.
And in your opinion, aside from these nonlinear equations, what do you think have been some of the greatest breakthroughs in the past decade in the fields of physics and chemistry?
That's an excellent question, Sue. I knew I could
Well,
count on it.
the big question is the synthesis of proteins. That is a very complicated matter. All the chemistry inside the cell and the synthesis of proteins, that is the frontier that is really high to jump on it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that in the future we're going to be able to synthesize chemical processes in a cell to the extent that we can recreate that and generate life in a lab?
In a lab. Most probably primitive life, yes.
Primitive
life, yes.
Like Sue's boyfriends.
No, don't be ironic. Don't be ironic. No, very primitive life. It's a unicellular mechanism, perhaps without the mitochondria, but very primitive. Very primitive.
Very interesting, very interesting.
That's wrong, by the way.
This is not
Yeah, it's not correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm taking a lot of notes. Excellent, excellent, very good. Should we take more questions from the audience?
Let us hear the audience.
The audience is very fascinated with this.
There has been some controversy surrounding these nonlinear equations about the validity of the outcome. What do you have to say to those?
Maybe I compound that
No,
because some people in the audience are very skeptical about your discoveries, and to the extent that they're calling it fake news.
Mm-hmm.
No, it cannot, because you can have a reprint of our work and then you can follow the steps and then you can see that the conclusions are correct. It is not an invention, it is a demonstration that we have done. Out of the properties of the collection of equations, you end up explaining the strange experimental result based on that theory of separation of slow and fast variables. Yeah.
I agree with your assessment, but the situation with today's world is that people don't have the time to go through the validation process, and they just believe if somebody makes a claim about fake news, they just believe it's fake news. They don't take the time to go and then discover it.
There is a difference in scientific world. In the scientific world, you obtain new results, and then you publish them and send them to a journal. And then there are referees, anonymous referees, that read and validate and can reject or accept for publication. It is not just an invention.
Wonderful.
The whole community, the world community, qualifies the things that are published in the journals.
Do you believe that the political system in the world could take some examples from the scientific community to validate the claims made by some of our political figures of this era?
Generally, the political figures, when they step into science, you better don't hear them.
I understand some big figures in today's political world don't believe that in the science behind global warming, for example.
Yes, it is because of the term that they are very ignorant to begin with. And also the term employed, warming. They say, oh, if this winter is so cold, why they claim that it is warming? I guess it would be better to call them climate change.
Climate change.
Climate change
Let's
would
call it
be
climate
more
change.
descriptive.
Audience, let's call it climate change from now on. I think that's a very good
Yeah, whatever
statement.
you say.
Or
Because
if Sue believes it's a good idea, it might be a good idea. Please proceed.
No, after
Oh,
you.
okay.
I wanted to tell you about an industrial applications. Many years ago, let us say 25 years ago, perhaps you remember that we were noticing that the ozone at the level of the poles the atmosphere of the Earth was being depleted by ozone. And we need ozone in the upper stratosphere in order to not get down to us the ultraviolet and gamma rays from the sun, but because that would destroy life.
Speaking of life, what species are being affected by this climate change?
All the species, to begin with us ourselves, the human species.
The human.
And how?
What about winged creatures?
Oh, we need a lot of creatures.
What type of creatures?
For example, the bees.
Winged creatures. I've never heard of those. We should be careful about winged creatures. Don't you believe we have too many?
I heard creatures.
Winged, with wings.
For example,
winged.
insects and things like that.
I mean, English is not my first language. You mean winged with winged? With wings?
Yes.
Oh.
Tell me, Andy, your perspective on the winged flight.
Is it true that if you have more oxygen in the atmosphere, the mosquitoes will be a lot bigger?
No. I think that is,
Sue,
that is an example of
keep
fake
it together,
theory.
keep it together, Sue.
That is an example of fake theory.
A fake theory.
Yes, yes.
I saw that in Jurassic Park.
You know, why are you so fascinated with mosquitoes? I think you need to
I don't like mosquitoes.
let it go.
When I go to summer vacation, you know, I like to spend
You know,
time
one
outside.
time he bombed the
And-
whole office because there was a single mosquito.
And at twilight, you usually when the sun comes down, you have all these mosquitoes, and you just
And they are
unpleasant.
nuisance,
It's
of course.
unpleasant. You know, they're predatory.
Yeah, predatory. What are we doing picking on these innocent creatures for? It's a simple mosquito.
They can go to Mars if
It's
they
about
ever
one
get here.
1,000th of your size.
And there's too many.
And
of
yet,
them. There's too many of them.
too many of them. Then
Don't
what do you
lose focus.
suggest?
Don't lose focus on
What
the
do you
interview.
suggest that we do about this mosquito epidemic that's ravaging our lands, pillaging our crops?
No, that is terrible, because they are poisoning laws.
We
For
must at
example,
least
the crocodile-
annihilate
For
mosquitoes.
example, the glyphosate is very dangerous. We risk to remain without any bees at all.
Please.
And also,
But
for
your
example,
chemical processes, non-linear
in
chemical
a certain sense, the
Tere, let
state,
me stop you right there. The non-chemical processes that you propose might create synthetic honey. We might not need the
no,
sticky bees.
Synthetic honey? You were just the other day complaining about how honey is artificial.
How can you tell if it's synthetic or natural honey?
maybe the mixture of primary sugars
What do you
that
think
compose.
about the shift from everything being real to everything being artificial? Artificial intelligence, for example.
No, to me that is a disaster.
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 And yet, he supports this kind of thing.
I think we're evolving into a different field of science, but I'm a supporter
But yeah,
of artificial
we have the
intelligence.
scientist here saying that it will be a
Yes,
disaster.
yes, yes. We must study nature in order to help it, in order to take care of it, not in order to destroy it and replace it, because then goodbye with my kind.
But you know, there's a saying that says nothing gets created or destroyed, it just evolves.
Evolves, yes.
Yeah.
But there is a
Evolves for the
start.
better.
It's a basic law of physics
So
of the universe.
something was created, don't forget the Big Bang. Suddenly there was a Big Bang of 14,000 million years.
Yes.
So that has been proved.
It's been proven by Stephen
Hasn't
Hawking.
been proven.
No.
though, it's a theory.
Stephen Hawking aside, for example, most recently the gravitational waves were detected.
Yes.
No, general relativity describes perfectly what we know about the universe, and there's no question that there was a beginning, a Big Bang.
Yes, we believe in the Big Bang. However, Andy believes in the small bang.
I believe in medium bang, small
He
bang.
believes in the small bang. Will you
The small
touch
bang.
on your beliefs?
No, the problem you
Well,
know.
let me explain you my theory of the Big Bang and the small bang.
No. You
No,
believe
wait,
in the
wait.
small
I
bang.
believe in a small bang because there couldn't be a big bang if there was no small bang.
No.
Otherwise it would just be a bang.
If-
You understand? Why would you categorize it as a big bang if there is no small bang?
It is because it refers
I'll be
to
right back.
It's one of the reasons I might be considered for Nobel Prize because I have deducted the small bang.
no. It is because out from a point, the whole matter or energy of the universe explodes out.
Exactly.
This is why
Exactly.
it is called a
So,
bang.
tell us about the origin of your small bang theory.
My
because you-
origin of a small bang theory comes back to Socrates and the principles of
No, of
logic.
course, that makes Socrates. You don't have any
Socrates,
Principles
why
of
are
logic.
you bringing him in?
The principles of logic explain the following. If you qualify a bang by calling it a big bang, there needs to be something that back from commercials to finish with Tere de la Selva.
Finish.
Finish. But I'm sorry to say that this is personal. Sue, you know, you're attacking my intuition and my belief of the medium bang and the small bang theory. What about you,
It
theory?
was not question of
He's been
belief.
attacking me for years.
What about your theories on the
He's
walking
like,
of the
everyone's like, it's the circle of life, but I always believed it was the pentagon of life.
Exactly.
No, we don't
Thank
have
you.
that because you don't have any evidence on the Pentagon. And we've spoken
No.
about it many
It's
times.
the pentagon of life, sir. I mean,
Now, there
there's
was
no
a beginning. It was a big. It is called a Big Bang, but
Big
out of
Bang.
a point,
out to the
point
points.
everything in an explosion of energy. Then energy collapsed and started forming matter,
We have
and
all-
it started forming stars,
Yes.
and it started forming planets, and then on planets it started forming silicates
See,
and rocks.
you're always
and
trying to go
things and water.
small, but the world is so big, so many possibilities. Yet
And
he
then-
suggests that it was a small bang. I mean,
No, it is not. And then, after mineral life, let us speak life, then the first bacteria, the first animal, and then the evolution begins.
The
It's
algae.
a marvel. Yes.
The algae.
Until about 5 minutes ago, she was a believer of divine intervention. I don't know what you're talking about.
Me?
Yes, what are you?
Well,
Fake
yes.
news.
Say.
Oh,
Fake
please,
news,
let me-
divine
Please,
intervention.
please
Yeah.
stop this. This is ridiculous.
This is nonsense.
It's ridiculous.
Let us.
Please let me tell you an answer that I wrote to a friend of mine. Imagine a very intelligent dog, a very nice dog that passes every day
A
in
canine? A
front.
canine? A
Uh,
dog?
A dog.
A dog.
Imagine.
Doge.
Yeah, I am going to give you a parable, a comparison.
Comparison.
The
Imagine
noble Doge is walking.
a dog, a little dog that walks every day in front of the kitchen. And then he notices that when there is flame, then the beans are no longer hard, but the beans become soft. Then he noticed that suddenly there is tomato that changes the color of the beans. And then makes himself, for his small animal universe, an idea of how is the functioning. You need a fire to soften the beans, etc., etc. And then he's so arrogant, this little dog, that says, okay, I have discovered all this, but there is no cook.
There is no cook.
Precisely.
Yeah,
You have the
exactly.
kernel and the top.
So because you discover
So the
certain
moral,
truth,
moral of the story, Sue, if you're so smart as you claim to be, what's the moral of the story, Sue? Sue?
let us wait for Sue answer.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, exactly.
I know the
discovered
moral
how
of the
things are
story, but-
proceeded, and then there is no cook. Oh,
There's no
how
cook.
clever.
Yeah, that's what I said. So no cook.
No, come on, you don't grasp the idea.
Sue, we're ready in the national televised special CNN New York Times. This is your job at stake, Sue. 5 years in the making. I'm sorry, she had nothing to say.
Of course not.
Okay. On that note, we might have to end this very interesting meeting with Tere de la Selva.
Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry, I missed that. So,
Well, where were you? Were you busy writing something?
I mean, please. Of course I was busy. You're the one who's always, I don't know what you're doing with all your hours of time, but like.
So Miss Tere, we're gonna end with one question. What are you gonna do with the $1 million if you win the Nobel Prize?
If I win the Nobel Prize, I will take $1 million to feed young people.
To feed young people. Very
It's
nice.
because there are many, many talents that gets lost into a river of ignorance. To feed young.
Feed in the literal way or feed with knowledge?
Feed them with food to
Food.
begin with.
To begin with.
How are you going to have a
with
brain
knowledge?
functioning if since the womb of the mother you are not well
So
nourished?
ignorant of starvation in the world.
So-
all he
so
does
much
is all he
starvation.
does is eat. I mean, what does he know?
Oh, nice. Like, what are you talking about? Okay. So, cut.
Just get mad and storm off.
Yo no te enojaste con nosotros.
No, ya lo sé, pero...
Te tienes que enojar y salirte porque es el final. Entonces, ya al
No,
final.
but I am a scientist,
Yeah.
and I gave you
Yeah, you're supposed to do this on camera. You gotta get up.
And I get a formidable argument.
You should take
Not
up.
because you understand something, you jump at the conclusion that this something that you are starting to understand was not
Yes,
written
yes,
by
yes.
anyone,
But
and
we're-
it's not good.
We're filming a
Exactly.
skit. We're filming a skit, and you have to get angry.
It's a joke. It's
You have to, yeah,
so you have to
get
take
angry.
your glasses off and like slam them.
I
and be
should have, no. You told me that I was going to be interviewed because I was getting the Nobel Prize.
Okay. Well, very good. Okay, so cut.
God, and I may commend those interviewers are really special.